Welcome to Breakthroughs in Depression and Anxiety, where we're looking for future cures and natural treatments for depression and anxiety. Join Mick Maley, whose mission is to increase knowledge and give hope to those who suffer, as well as spread the word about new treatments, which he hopes will encourage new development and raise money for further research. Mick is not a doctor, and so you should always speak to your doctor first before engaging in treatment. Now, here's your host, Mick Maley.
Hello and welcome to the podcast. This is the podcast Breakthroughs in Depression and Anxiety. This is Mick. I will be hosting the show. I know it said so in the intro, but I just want to remind you that I am not a doctor. Pretty close. I mean, for how much study I did, I'm pretty close, but I'm not quite there yet. So the aim of this podcast, this is the first episode, so I'm going to tell you what this is all about. First off, I'd just like to have the admission right away. I have depression. The aim of this podcast is to help people when they're in depression, going through depression, to have hope, to be able to look at certain things, maybe to jump into clinical trials if they need to. There's also going to be some talk of natural remedies, which a lot of I've tried. And so the format will kind of be like this. I'll do a little bit of an intro. Sometimes I may talk about things I'm trying or tried. And I may talk about, and this will be things that are more accessible, not necessarily like new breakthroughs, So this is purely would be things that, it could even be things like fish oil, which, I've been doing for years. So, and then I'll go into what I consider to be a potential breakthrough in the treatment of depression, and this can be many different things. So I'm going to start off with something that I've been trying just kind of recent. Well, I've had the machine since 2013, and this may be a episode in itself eventually once I get a little more hard data on it, but this is something you can buy now, and it's very experimental. It's in clinical trials, but it's something that kind of the DIY community does, and that you'll see on Reddit and I think even on Longevity. But it's called TDCS, which stands for Transcranial Direct Current Stimulation, and it's pretty much a mild version of shocking your brain. There's different montages. You have an anode and a cathode. Generally, it's kind of like a little, just a little box. You have a 9-volt battery put in there, and you hook up the anode, generally speaking, to the upper left part of your forehead, and the cathode can go in different places. Generally, I put it on my right arm because the cathode is supposed to reduce brain function, and the anode enhances brain function, and I don't know if I'm experienced enough to reduce my brain function, and that's not something I'm looking too much into doing. So I experimented with it a few times. The latest time I did a protocol of 20 days where I did it every morning for 10 to 20 minutes. And to get some context, they say generally it's about 2 months you need to do it for it to become pretty effective. I noticed afterwards I'd always get a bit hyper would be the wrong word, but I'd feel good, a little motivated. It didn't last very long, maybe an hour or so, but that's not really what you're supposedly going for. The effects are supposed to accumulate over a period of time, like 2 months, because it's supposed to slowly encourage long-term changes in the brain. You can look up this technology in a lot of different places. They have them online. It's not hard to find, and actually they're pretty cheap now. When I bought my unit, it was about $300 because it was not really too much heard of back then. But it's something if you're really seriously depressed right now, it is. I mean, I would think it might be worth a try. I've had kind of a funky thing lately where I get depressed for a week and then don't get depressed, so it's been hard to continue it because I start to feel better. I'm like, well, I'm feeling better, so why do I need this still? But I've definitely had it where it's years and years in a row. Well, not years, maybe 2 Okay, so 2 years in a row at least. And so I'd know that if I'd keep trying that, you could definitely see results. So if you guys have any, thoughts or feelings on that treatment, again, it's TDCS. Send me an email. Let me know if it's worked for you. Any information regarding it would help. Because, like I said, I might do a future episode on it. Or, just your experiences. Now we're going to go on to the main topic, which is a big one. I'd say fairly big right now. It's not ketamine, guys. I mean, that's a little too obvious. But I thought I'd start with this one because there's a lot of information on it. It's called NSI 189. It's a neuroproductive drug. It's made by a company named Neurostem, and they develop treatments for central nervous systems. And I think most of their stuff comes from stem cells. They're located in Germantown, Maryland. NSI is classified as a drug name, but I can't pronounce it. It's something like benzylpiperazine ammonium pyridine. And yeah, I can't pronounce it, but if computers are so smart, maybe they can.
Benzylpiperazine aminopyridine.
Okay, that doesn't mean anything to me, but it's supposed to be neurogenetic and synaptogenic. And that's right. Which basically means it creates neurogenesis and formation of synapses between the neurons, which basically means it's a formation of synapses between neurons in the nervous system. And it's neurogenetic, meaning it originates in the nervous system. So the uses for this drug, at least potentially in the future, right now it's being heavily studied for depression, major depressive disorder. But also from people I've read and such, and these things often go together, as you know. It could be used for anxiety in the future, depression in the future as well. Traumatic brain injury, Alzheimer's disease, post-traumatic stress disorder, stroke, and like with Alzheimer's, it could be just a natural cognitive and memory enhancer related to aging. You don't have to have any kind of unfortunate diseases. So the theory on it is that it assaults the neurons in the human hippocampus, are now suspected to be linked to many devastating diseases in the mind and the brain. So that's kind of basically low hippocampal volume is the theory is that causes problems. So in animal studies, compound have demonstrated clear evidence of new neuron growth in the hippocampal and increased hippocampal volume. Nostrom believes that stimulating generation of new neurons in the hippocampus could potentially address the pathology of depression itself. That's their theory, and I think they're sticking to it. Okay, so about the research showing that depressed patients have reduced hippocampal volume. So something to support this is Dr. Carl Joe, I think it is, he's the CEO of Neurostem, has implied that this drug may have potential to cure people with the conditions related to reduced hippocampal volumes. Taking the drug will elicit neurogenesis and initiate growth in certain regions of the brain. When a person stops taking the drug, these regions will have already grown healthier, and so they're saying that the functions and the benefits of it will be maintained. And this, actually, I have read about from anecdotal evidence of people on Launch City that have taken it. They say that it is maintained quite a while afterwards. And they say that it can grow the hippocampus by 20%. And now it's interesting to say that SSRIs now they're it's now pretty much kind of known that they cause antidepressant effect from other means, and it is said that they do grow the hippocampus by 5% roughly. That might be why they work, but we don't know. So what does the hippocampus do? It transforms your short memories into long-term memories. It plays a critical role in spatial navigation. So this drug may prove to enhance overall brain functioning, including your mental speed, dexterity, and performance. This could result in improved ability to retrieve memories, both short and long term, And so that being said, it is a neurotropic type smart drug. So, as I mentioned the site earlier, Lawn City, they're going nuts over it. They're riding it up. It's a really hot topic. The other interesting fact is that the research is being funded by DARPA, and I'm not really sure their interest, but I assume it has something to do with soldiers coming back home with PTSD, because I know they have other projects in the works for this type of thing. As I mentioned, people on different sites and stuff have tried it, so NSI can be bought now, but it is being sold, one, illegally, and you obviously do not know what you're getting. They could just be selling you flour at not the best, but best would be you get what you're asking for. But it could be something much worse than that. And I know that Neurostem has been issuing cease and desist orders to these websites, so it has become harder. So, based on the preliminary statement from developers, it is thought that the drug will affect your levels of various neurotransmitters. I don't think it's a direct reason for anything, but I think that's what does kind of as an after effect. It may affect the speed and or processing of neurotransmission, as well as various receptors. So that's kind of the down low of the information about this new breakthrough in depression. I found a pretty good testimonial that I'm just going to read to you. I found it on the forums and actually on a site. I believe it was a female that did, so I'm going to refer to her as she. And here's what she says. Today is my 30th day on NSI 189, and this is my first real update since starting my trial. I originally was very interested in NSI because I have chronic treatment-resistant depression. I pretty much have had dysthymia with some occurrences of major depression all of my adult life. But why I really wanted to try NSI is because of the worsening memory / concentration that occurs with long-term depression. And so, the mechanism of action of NSI seems spot on. For the first week on NSI, I noticed a clear reaction right away. I started being aware of small environmental details that I usually would not notice. I especially was keen on noticing nuanced facial expressions. Some of my experiences were similar to taking Nupept, at least at first. NSI also gave me a mild stimulating effect that was not quite like a stimulant. I also have ADD, so the effect was welcome. In general, I was more focused and felt some sort of inner peace. Overall, I would say that the strongest effect for me, the first week, and then the effects tapered a bit, and then strengthened after the third week. For the first week, I was taking 40 milligrams once a day, and that was more than enough, but I did notice an obvious come down effect about 12 hours later. The second week, I dosed 30 milligrams 2 times a day, but strangely, I felt less of an effect even though I was dosing more overall. The following weeks, I have been doing 40 milligrams twice a day, which is a standard middle range dose. As my trial went on, my emotions became reminiscent of how I felt like when I was younger. So I felt like I was going back in time a bit. Also, I am a very withdrawn person and keep to myself, almost to the extreme, and I found myself having small talk with the store clerk, which was interesting. I also wasn't as self-conscious. I noticed that some people here have had opposite effects, though, and started becoming more withdrawn. Perhaps NSI is turning on a switch for some sort of regards to social interactions. One remarkable feat of NSI is that it comes with little to no side effects, at least for me. I experienced no headaches, which some people do experience. Seemed to be the number one common side effect. Occasionally I experienced a mild transient head pressure or tingling, but it was not really bothersome to me, and I have a low tolerance for pain and discomfort. People take antidepressants to feel better, not worse, right? On a scale of 0 to 5, 5 being severe, I would rate the side effects of NSI being a 1 being mild and frequent. 30 days into, I would say that NSI is promoting and can help many people, especially those who do not respond to other treatments like SSRIs. Having said that, I still have a long way to go before I can completely relieved of my depression. No, I'm not cured just yet of my depression, despite the hype that SI can cure depression. No matter how good a drug is, one still needs to develop good habits over the long term. That's why I think at least 3 to 6 months of NSI is needed before real life changes happen. So that's her opinion, and that's something that's, she bought off the internet, so you can't even say it's legit and it's anecdotal, but it is an interesting story, and there are several more, trust me. And she had a follow-up, and the follow-up was a little more detailed. As we go into the next phase here, I'm going to talk about the clinical trials. Now, it's been through phase 1A of clinical trials, which started in February 2011, and it completed in October 2011. And that was basically just testing escalating doses for side effects and such like this for non-depressed people. So it was a very simple, test. Phase 1B started in June of 2012, completed in the fourth quarter of 2013. That was tested for safety of escalating doses of NSI-189 for 28 daily administrations in 24 depressed patients. And that's finished now, so the results showed clinically meaningful reduction in cognitive and depressive symptoms across all measures in depressed patients on NSI-189. Active therapy against the control group continuing for the duration of the trial. 8 weeks after the 28 treatments had stopped, so it made them smarter and less depressed, even 8 weeks, so 2 months after it stopped, so they stopped taking it. Data further showed that results continued for 8 weeks post-trial, despite the fact that there was no accumulation of the drug in the patient's systems. The investigators concluded that Neurogenesis based platform could identify promising new treatments for major depression. Now, phase 2 trials are expected to begin relatively soon, the first quarter of 2016. This next clinical trial is expected to test 2 doses, 40 milligrams once a day and 40 milligrams twice a day, along with randomized double-blinded placebo control group in approximately 200 patients, that's a lot, with depression, with the aim of confirming these extremely promising results. So, the clinical trial is not yet enrolling, but they should be soon. If you're interested in enrolling in this study, you would have to be between the ages of 18 and 60. Your current depressed mood must be 8 weeks in duration. You must have a Montgomery-Asberg depression scale of 20 or more. So, in general, to women, if you're a woman, you can't be pregnant, you can't be breastfeeding, and you have to be on some sort of birth control if you're of childbearing age. But since you're depressed, I'm guessing there's not much sex anyways, so it's probably not a problem. And kind of the same for guys, not the pregnant thing or breastfeeding thing, but you must use protection if you're active. Your body mass index must be between 19.5 and 38. So I don't know why that is. It might, I don't know. Also, it's in Maryland. I've never done a clinical trial, so I assume that means you must be there at least at some point to participate. But yeah, I don't know. I assume that's the case. And so if you look at the Montgomery and Asberg depression rating scale, they have it all graphed out perfectly here, and they have it from day 0 to day 80. And they have different doses and stuff like this, all the same, but in general, from day 0, the placebo group was at 25 on average score for depression. And after administration, it looks like they're about at 18. So they dropped 7 points in 80 days. So for the NSI group, they were at 25 as well. And they dropped down to about a 14, which is pretty good. they say it's astonishing, but it beats out placebo quite handily. As far as side effects, I know that when I've read the forums and what they reported is headache is like the most common factor, but surprisingly, people who got headaches, everyone got a headache on the placebo, and everyone got a headache on the NSI for the most part. So that's kind of a draw. Dizziness went out a little more on the NSI 189. Drowsiness was 0 for placebo, and they had out of 18 people, they had 5 with dizziness. Intoxication, that's funny. And one person said on NSI when they got intoxicated out of 18, 0 out of placebo. Nightmare/vivid dreams, that was about 4 out of 18 on the NSI and 0 out of placebo. There's not too much else really. That's about it. There's a few other things listed, but nothing that's more significant than placebo. So, to me, this has been a promising drug I've been looking into for quite some time. I do have some. I've never taken it because, well, I mean, to do things like this, to take things that aren't clinically and not known, you do have to be. I don't recommend it. I'm not doing it. I just, you have to be very desperate. I mean, so. But I do think that this is something to be very excited about, not only for depression, but its cognitive effects. I think this drug could possibly be a good long-term solution for depression. I don't think it's going to be something that will be like, oh, well, my depression's done. But I mean, I think this effects, and I've read this, that they're a little more subtle than some other things in the pipeline. But I think that it's something that's looks like it could be very easy in the system and might provide an easier way of life overall. From what I've read from other people's experiences, it's hard to tell whether it works, but I have read some great reports. Anecdotal things are always really tough, when you get things. I've had a lot of good people's experiences and some people's not as good, but mostly, I think most of the time it's pretty good from what I've read. One of the cautions I thought of first off, and I think that I've heard this mentioned, was that I thought like, oh, wait, it grows brain cells? That could cause cancer because of uncontrolled growth, and that was one of the things I thought of. But I guess that'll be borne out in the trials and time. But there has been no evidence of that. That's just in my mind. So that's NSI 189. Again, if you have any questions or comments, if you feel lonely, or if you have tried NSI 189 and would like to share your experience on the show, you can email me at breakthroughindepression@gmail.com. And I hope that I provide some hope for everyone. We're going to put this first episode in the can. Take care, everyone.